Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, and from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. It has been an extraordinary morning and an unbelievable experience. I think it was really not necessary to invite another speaker after Father Fish. That's how they invite you and trap you. Swami Vedananji set the bar saying that the speakers will be decided by what they speak. And then Tatwamayananda, he gave an introduction which was more than a speech. And then to cap it all, we had Father Fish giving such an extraordinary account. Finally I am left high and dry. Father Fish has really made me fish out of water. Now coming to more sublime discussions. Swami Vedananji talked about how this place has been made holy. In fact, without referring to any traditional scripture, he said it. That is what is mentioned in one of the famous scriptures called Narada Bhakti Sutras, where it says, Tirthi Kurvanti Tirthani. How does a place really become a place of pilgrimage? You heard so much about pilgrimage from Father Fish. It says by people flocking in great numbers constantly to a place with the idea of connecting with the Supreme or the Sublime, with some noble thoughts, and coming there with a true import, true desire to indulge in spiritual practices, to do sadhana. Is how a place becomes a truly spiritual place or a place of pilgrimage. You can look up at the history of the celebrated places of pilgrimage all over the world, and you really find that each one has been built up that way. Obviously, this place is certainly a place of pilgrimage because the whole ambience, the whole atmosphere is so spiritually elevating. And of course, it's also an extremely humbling experience after listening to the talk of Father Fish. In essence, he touched upon an idea which I will come to a little later, which is central to the Hinduism as well as in particular to the Ramakrishna Vivekananda tradition, the idea of sadhana or spiritual practice. Talking about this very ambience, this gathering, how it can really transform people. I think all of us who have listened to Father Fish today really feel that we have been taken to a different world altogether. That is what Sri Ramakrishna again and again stresses in his immortal words which are found in that text called the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Again and again he talks about satsanga or the company of the holy, its transforming power. I think all of us will clearly agree that coming here, being together in the company of such like-minded souls, it's really a transforming experience. That's what Sri Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita. Matchitta Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam Katayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanti Charamanti Cha. He says, of course, instead of Krishna you can substitute any idea, any god, any tradition there. The idea is saying, my devotees who are totally dedicated to me, devoted to me, they constantly speak about my qualities, my greatness. They tell each other, similar like-minded people. And that is their only delight, that is their only spot, that is their only engagement. And what happens to such people? He comes out in the very next sloka, he says, Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadhami buddhyoga. He says, when people who are engaged that way, constantly thinking about me, thinking about my glories, singing my praise, to them I give this refined or an enlightened intellect where they can really decide, make the right choices in life, where their journey in the spiritual world will truly begin. So Sri Ramakrishna again and again talks about the power of the holy company or the satsanga. I would like to illustrate this with an incident from his own life, because these are some of the universal dimensions of religions across the board. Just as Father Fish talked about pilgrimage, pilgrimage is not the copyright of any particular religion or tradition. It's there in every tradition, in every religion. Similarly, this idea of satsanga or the company of holy. But what we really need is to highlight, bring forth, again and again share and discuss these ideas, these incidents, so that they make a deep dent, deep impression on our minds, and we carry home, the take home, and we again begin our own journey in our own little humble way. Because when we talk about the universal dimensions of religion, I think we should go even more fundamental and understand that religion itself is universal. That is perhaps the most fundamental or foundational aspect of human life itself. And unfortunately, a large group, both young and old, all over the world, are moving away from this idea of religion itself. So rather than trying to work out the nitty-gritties or settle scores that way, all of us would contribute enormously if we can really bring people, irrespective of their faith, back to this platform called religion, where we can all share, we can all live in harmony, be happy, and undertake a journey of pilgrimage together. So that is more important, rather than just trying to find out the minor differences or where they are universal, where they are not so universal. Yes, we need to understand, but much more than that, today we are in a very dire situation where people as a class are moving out of religion itself, and I think that's a more major problem, a more serious issue. So you are also, we are able to see today a new group emerging who call themselves spiritual but not religious, SBNR. I think probably these type of messages, the message of pilgrimage, the message of satsanga, the holy company, I think this should appeal to them too, because we are not talking about any religious, any ritual or any dogma, any something that is fundamental that way, but we are really talking about an universal and all-embracing dimension of religion. Now this satsanga or the holy company, how it can really transform people. Sri Ramakrishna's room in Dakshineshwar was always a mart of joy. Whenever he was present, it was an unbelievable experience for those who were there. There used to be constant singing of the Lord's name, discussion on spiritual matters, soul elevating themes, and everyone there used to feel so uplifted. So much so, the compiler of the Gospel of Ramakrishna, Mahendranath Gupta, or Master Mahashaya as was fondly called, had a serious doubt. When he is around, when I am in his company, I feel so uplifted. All my worries take to flight. I am in a different world altogether. But when I go back home, it's again back to square one. There was serious misunderstanding between his wife and his own mother. There were severe family problems. So much so his wife contemplated or even attempted suicide a couple of times. So he was in a very serious dilemma. When I am in his presence, I feel so uplifted. When I go back, it's totally different again, back to the old ways. What will happen when this great soul departs from this earth? So that is why, you will find in that book, every now and then the question, do people who live in this world, the householders, do they realize God? Is it possible for them? Can they realize God? In various ways, often in his own name, often in other pseudonyms, in other names. Again and again he comes forward with this question, and every time Sri Ramakrishna assures him that it is possible, it's certainly possible. And one of the things which Sri Ramakrishna advocates again and again is a satsanga, or the company of the holy. Now, one day there was as usual a gathering of devotees in Sri Ramakrishna's room at Dakshineshwar, and as usual he was singing in great joy and discussing spiritual topics with the devotees there. Suddenly, a gentleman by name Manilal came there. That day, his 21-year-old son had died all of a sudden. He had gone to the cremation ground, performed the funeral rites, and straight he came to Dakshineshwar. He was sitting in a corner of the room, totally downcast and so full of sorrow, inconsolable. Initially no one noticed him, but soon others started taking notice of his presence, and they started consoling him in various ways. The usual things, as we always say, oh, the world is transitory, people who are born are bound to die, and so on. But none of them could make any impression whatsoever on Manila. Finally, Sri Ramakrishna's eyes fell on him, and he asked him, Manila, why are you so sorrowful? What happened? And Manilal said, today I just lost my 21-year-old son. I've cremated him and I've come straight here. Sri Ramakrishna immediately did not say anything, but after a few moments, he recounted his own experience. Now, one of his brother's sons by name Akshay, he was once at Dakshineshwar. He was involved in some priestly duties. He had come there to serve as a priest. He was an extremely promising youngster, full of spiritual tendencies, and Sri Ramakrishna had great affection for him. But then this youngster fell sick, and then they were consulting some ordinary doctors. And Sri Ramakrishna suddenly blurted out, he told his attendant Hriday, who was his nephew, Hriday, what are they doing? They should show him to a good doctor, otherwise the boy would die. Hriday was shocked. He said, uncle, whatever comes up out of your mouth becomes true. Why did you say this? I don't say anything on my own. It was a divine mother who made me say this. And the boy really died. And Sri Ramakrishna was present on the very scene, at the scene. And then he was virtually in ecstasy at that time. Nobody could understand. Others were weeping and wailing, whereas Sri Ramakrishna was so full of joy and bliss. He himself explains that day to Manila, I saw clearly the soul's flight to freedom. It was as if a sword was being removed from the scabbard. It could be swung in any direction. I saw the freedom of the soul, the way it was escaping. That's why I was in such ecstasy. But he said, the very next evening, I cannot explain how painful I felt. I felt as if someone was wringing my heart like a wet towel. I don't think you can describe pain in a better way. He said, as if someone was wringing my heart like a wet towel, and I felt so much pain. And he added, if I was absolutely no connection with the world whatsoever, I can't even keep my clothes on. If I feel that way, I can very well understand how people living in the world like you would feel sorrowful at the death of someone so dear and near. Even as he was talking, slowly a change was coming over Manila. Then Ramakrishna started singing an extraordinary song in Bengali, which runs as follows. It says, O Jiva, O soul, get ready for the battle, put on the war dress, war clothes. The Lord of Death is trying to enter your house, be prepared to tackle him head on, and so forth. And he has such an extraordinary voice, and he could sing with such feelings. Everyone felt so uplifted. The whole atmosphere was surcharged with spiritual feeling and mood. And then he slowly came and sat by the side of Manila and then started explaining, you see Manila, birth, death, etc. are inescapable. But here alone is the wise person who learns lessons, who knows how to accommodate, adjust, get along with life, understand the real nature of this existence itself on earth, and so on. And by the time he finished explanation, Manilal was completely assuaged. He said, that is why I came straight from the burning heart to this place. I knew that no one else could wipe out this sorrow from my heart. That's the power of the company of the whole. When like-minded people in such an atmosphere, it can really bring tremendous relief, rid us of extraordinary, unbelievable incidents of sorrow. I'd also like to share a small incident which happened in my own life. In Delhi, because I feel I really envy the Swamis in the States, because they don't have to meet even 1/10 of the people that we have to meet every day. Morning to night, innumerable visitors. You can't shut the door, you can't set up your voicemail and say that it's not possible. So one day, a friend of mine who had retired as a very big official in the income tax department of the government of India, he rang me up to say that one of his former colleagues wants to meet me. Because I had met this gentleman some 20 years ago in connection with some other tax work of the organization. Of course, he didn't do it for us. Still, he sent word that he wants to meet me. I said, okay. In fact, he was elsewhere. He was in Calcutta. And he came along with his sister and the sister's husband. I was surprised that after so many years he could track me down and come. And then, he said, Swamiji, I have come because of my sister. You please talk to her. She started. She said, Maharaj, this is how they usually address Swamis in India. I have a son who is studying for engineering. He is a very bright student. He is doing well. I had a 12-year-old daughter who was exceptionally good in everything, in music, in dance, in looks, in her behavior. She was the darling of the entire household. Not only that, her school, associates, teachers, everyone. Suddenly she developed some fever or so. We took her to a doctor. He recommended that we admit her in a hospital. We admitted. A couple of days later, they transferred her to an intensive care unit. And 2 days later, she died. We are religious people. We don't do anything wrong. We are very moral, ethical people. Why this happened to us? Now I try to console her in the normal, usual way. And I could clearly see that it was not making any impression whatsoever. Then I said, you see, I can understand. I really can't remove your grief right now. But will you do a small thing, a small piece of advice which I am going to give you? She agreed. I said, remember, you shouldn't allow this sorrow to be just wiped out in an ordinary way. I said, I can quote innumerable instances where people come with a tremendous sense of sorrow or grief, but then after a few days, they are back to their old ways, trying to participate in every activity of the world. Don't do that. Don't build castles on your son. Let him study, let him be on his own. You keep this sorrow in your heart, and you must seek an answer from God and God only. Don't allow this sorrow to be just assuaged in an ordinary way through ordinary incidents. And I said, I have a prescription. Go to the bookstore below, buy this book called The Gospel of Ramakrishna. Read 5 pages of it every day, not more than that, but read it at a time when you are fairly settled in mind, whether in the morning as the first business or at the end of the day when you are through with everything else. Read 5 pages. The next day you think about whatever you had read. I assure you, within 2 years you will get an answer. And if you don't get an answer, you come back to me. I am answerable. She accepted my prescription. And then before she departed, I said, can I ask you a small question? Yes. I said, suppose by some divine intervention or magic or whatever you might call it, you are gifted with a vision by which you are able to see right now your daughter is in such a place, she is 1,000 times more happier than when you are in her home. She is dancing, she is going about, she has everything, the gifts and the other items which she possesses, you can't even imagine. Will you still grieve? Will you still be sorrowful? She was really stopped in her tracks. No, Swamiji, I will not cry then. I said, leave it as such. I am not saying what happened was good, but we really do not know. We can't understand life. I say this book, this holy company will solve their problem in 2 years. In fact, within months, she called me from Calcutta to say that, Swamiji, I want formal initiation or mantra diksha from the president of the order. Can you arrange? I said, I don't have to do anything. Simply go and meet the secretary of President Marin and just briefly tell her your background. You will be given initiation after turn. She took initiation. She is much more settled. Her son has got a good job. She is far, far better, and she has recovered enormously. So, when you talk about the universal dimensions of religion, just as he talked about pilgrimage, I would say that this company of the holy has extraordinary powers of bringing about changes, transformations in our life. We have many other things to discuss, but we may not have time for everything. Perhaps Tatwamayananda may call me again, hopefully. Now we see, Hinduism itself has several ideas, several aspects relating to life which are universal in nature. First of all, he talked about the 4 stages of life. Even foundational to that idea is the idea of 4 purusharthas or 4 achievable goals or objectives of life, namely dharma, artha, kama and moksha. Dharma is perhaps the one word which is really central to this Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma as it is called. because it guides, is an underlying idea behind everything, is the guiding principle. It really holds you, it upholds you, it protects you. It comes from a Sanskrit word which has similar meaning. It really guides, holds and upholds and protects you. It's your inner voice, something which is deep within, that you cannot fail to recognize. So Sanatana Dharma says, this Dharma is the guiding principle, and based on that you can have artha, or you can acquire wealth. Then karma, you can enjoy, you can have desires, again passing through the filter of dharma, and then finally moksha or liberation or freedom. Now, I think these ideas can be accepted by anyone, anywhere in the world, because all of us need something which is a guiding principle. Anything in this world has a dharma, for example. Fire, the dharma of fire is its property of burning. The dharma of water is capacity to wet. So, like that, just as everything has a dharma, the dharma of human being is that inner voice or the inner guide or the protecting principle that helps you lead a life based on ethics, morality and all other virtues that way. So this is obviously something universal to every tradition. They may not say in so many words, but then the idea is definitely acceptable everywhere. Similarly, the idea of acquiring wealth, the idea of having desires satisfied, and then the idea of freedom. Now, this freedom is not only religious, it's far beyond religion. In fact, if we are given the choice, or rather the compulsion, that all our activities whatsoever, whatever we pursue, whatever be our endeavor, has to be described in a single word, I don't think there can be a better word than free. You please, during lunch, I will do the question answer, we can discuss. Wherever you start, I can take you and position you in such a way that you will have to accept that freedom is the word that can best describe, if you are not given a choice of too many words, any of your endeavors or any of your pursuits or whatever you are trying to do. Why? Because, majority of mankind is trying to acquire wealth, trying to acquire economic sustenance, economic capability, being more sound. What is that? People are trying to be free from the idea of lack of wealth. Any small hurt, any small injury, any small medical issue, we run to any number of doctors. What is that? We try to be free from the idea of lack of health. All the interpersonal issues that crop up, what is that? We are trying to be free from the lack of, or abhava as it's called in Sanskrit, the abhava of a smooth and harmonious relationship. So constantly these are the areas we go about. There may be many other areas, but all of them will fit in this description called freedom. So what normally we do is, we try to get freedom in one area, end up losing it elsewhere. Supposing we don't make enough money, we try to increase the hours of work, we take up other part-time jobs, etc. We work more, earn more, a little more free from that lack of wealth or the lack of money, that issue, then we end up losing freedom. Maybe we lose our health, our children, spouse and others complain that you don't give enough time to us, we suffer, we lose freedom in that interpersonal relationship. So in attempts to seek freedom in one direction, constantly we keep on losing elsewhere. Similarly, if you pay too much attention to your health, you find that people are sick of you, you are constantly complaining of this problem or that problem. You lose in the area the freedom of interpersonal relationship, or you lose a lot of money, you lose more economic freedom. So in life we are constantly running around trying to fix the lack of freedom in one area, end up losing it elsewhere. And that is why, Hinduism says there is one freedom which it calls as moksha, which takes care of every other lack of freedom. In all other directions is one idea, one freedom. It's a very big subject, so we can't go too deep into it. But it says that it's possible. How is that freedom obtained? Or what is that freedom essentially? That freedom is the idea that we are that infinite, birthless, deathless, eternal, immortal, ever blissful entity. Give it any name, Atman, Brahman, consciousness and so on. How do you call it? Universal? No, let us not give a name. The moment we give a name, then it becomes a creedal and it becomes belonging to one tradition or another. Just take the idea itself. Is it not extraordinary? Even to think of, even to feel that we are something absolutely boundless, beyond any limitation or hurdles. That idea is extremely powerful and extremely elevating. Now, Swami Vivekananda gave a beautiful definition of humankind. He said, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest his divinity. Do this either by work or worship or philosophy or psychic control, by one or more or all of these, and be free. So that is his prescription for freedom. We are all potentially that extraordinary being. Call it divine, call it anything, nature of consciousness, whatever name you give. I think this will be universal because every religion says we are all creations of God or the supreme principle. Then will not each one of us have at least in a small way that supreme principle? What harm in accepting that all of us are that supreme divine? That's what Swami Vivekananda says. We are that divine, but it's only potential. It's not yet manifested. We are unaware of it. We are totally unaware of that supreme nature of ourselves. And he says, this can be done by any method. Because again, he would classify mankind into four essential types. Namely those who are given to reasoning, very sharp reasoning, or the followers of the path of jnana or knowledge. And then those who are emotional by nature, you would call them followers of the path of bhakti or devotion. And then the Raja Yogis, those who are given to deep contemplation and that kind of an attempt. And then the Karma Yogis, the majority of the world, those who follow the path of karma or action. I can give you extraordinary examples from those who have followed each of these paths and attained that extraordinary freedom. Because it can all be not just theory alone, some philosophy, something someone says. Has it really been worked out? Have people really tasted success? Everyone wants proof, is it not? That's why in the Gita also it says, then only the others will be tempted, they will be inspired to take to that path. The Gita says, Yadyat acharati sreshaha tattayeva itaro janaha chayat pramanam kurute lokas tadana vartate. What the extraordinary people, what great people do, others follow them, try to emulate them. So I can give you examples from all these dimensions, but for want of time I would confine myself to an example from the path of Karma Yoga. Because we live in a world which is extremely active. We are all busy from morning 8 to night, 8, 9, 10, and even beyond. Whether you are in the world or we are in the monastery, no exceptions. But is it really possible to convert this activity into something supreme, something which can deliver that freedom which Swami Vivekananda talks about? I can show you an example from real life. With that, we will close the discussion for this morning. His name was Swami Muktananda. He was a very humble monk, not much of education. He was sent by his guru, Swami Shivananda, one of the direct disciples of Ramakrishna. His calling name was Banmihari. He said, Banmihari, you go to Benares Sevashrama and serve. You will get everything there. He had faith in his guru's words. He had faith in Swami Vivekananda's prescription of Karma Yoga as a path to freedom. He came to Benares. We have a hospital there, many of you might have visited. It's a very simple hospital with just some basic facilities. Even now, some 50-60 years ago, you can't imagine, but just virtually slightly more than an outpatient dispensary. Maybe with a few beds, but not much. None of the modern facilities that you can think of. So, he came because he didn't have any education, let alone medical education. What work would they give him? They gave him a small table, a few materials for dressing wounds, scissors and bandage material and some ointments, and he was assigned a desk in the outpatient department. Every day he would report for work at 8 a.m. and standing he would dress the wounds of patients till 3 p.m. Slowly he acquired such a deft touch. People would come from long distances. People with stinking wounds, nobody will be able to stand their presence. But this Swami, with absolutely no trace of any kind of aversion or any other feeling, he would dress them with all care and real kindness. And his touch was miraculous, magic. Everybody would get cured. Soon he acquired the name of Moving Vishwanath. In Benares, the presiding deity is a Shivalinga called Vishwanath. It's in the temple because that is stationary all the time. So they would compare him and call him as Moving Vishwanath. He never had time to visit the Benares Shiva temple. Many go every day. Whoever is in Benares, they go once, twice, even thrice the same day because they want to acquire as much punya or merits as possible. But he had no time. His only God was the patient in front of him. And he did it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, probably 4 decades. And every day he would go back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to his room. And there was no hot case, refrigerator or anything. Some stale food kept somewhere. That's what he would take without a word of murmur day after day. Because of continuous standing and working without break for decades, he developed severe rheumatism. His knees became swollen. He couldn't walk properly, but still he would drag himself and reach the outpatient department. Finally it became even worse. He couldn't walk at all. He called for a wheelchair and still he would go. Finally it was impossible for him to even stand up. Then he took retirement for work. At that time I happened to meet him. The glow in his face was proof of the freedom that he had attained. What he had done those 40 years, the result, his extraordinary calmness. He was a man of few words, but whosoever went to him never came back empty-handed. They felt transported. It was sheer joy and bliss to be in his company. So here is a standing example of the path of karma or the karma yoga, taking one to the ultimate goal of freedom in life. Our history, the history of mankind, in every religious tradition there are such remarkable examples. Now what we have to really do is to synergize, really give up all that what is apparently different at the surface, at the external. In fact, that is what this tradition, this Ramakrishna Vivekananda tradition especially emphasizes. It says become a practitioner. That is really important. Doesn't matter whatsoever be your belief, but if you become a practitioner, that is the way to progress in spiritual life, and that is the way to ultimately find the true goal of life, namely freedom. Thank you.
supposedly I spent a very, very
Yeah, what happened? I remember that.